Oh no, I'm a little early. Good morning, everyone. I was just actually setting up, and I accidentally hit the go live button. So I'm, since I'm here, I might as well just yak for a few minutes. I am at the cottage, and it's actually really sunny out today. I've got a horrible glare on me here, but it's sunny out. But what I want to paint is one of the scenes that I saw last night, and it was gorgeous. So I thought I wanted to paint that. And one of the things about painting a sunset is that it is a little hard to paint when the sun is going down. So just bear with me for a moment, and I'm just going to finish getting set up, and I will be back in a few minutes. I don't think there's a pause on here, so I'm just going to set the phone down. Hope you're having a great week. We are just at the end of a big heat wave here in southern Ontario. We've been scorching at around between 30 and 40 Celsius. So it is pretty warm. Completely debunking the idea that Canada is a frozen wasteland. Okay, just trying to get my picture set up here, and I did not bring a pencil with me, so I'm just going to wing it. All right, I'm back. I just had to get things set up. I am a couple of minutes early still, so let me just read through the comments here. While the rest, I know some people will be arriving at 10 and be surprised if if I've started early. So that's the thing, when you're used to working on your phone, or when you were used to working on your computer, and then you go to your phone, things are a little different. Um, yeah, so I'm on a lake in northern Ontario called Clare Lake, and it's gorgeous, but it has been very hot without any air conditioning during this heat wave. So hopefully, it feels a lot cooler today. So hopefully we're going to be a lot more comfortable now. So yeah, some of you here from Ontario know that we've been really hit with some of this heat. So I don't want. Let me just see if I can get my camera lined up here. I don't usually use this setup, so of course a little bit of a learning curve. Hang on 1 second. I'm setting you down again for just a moment. I'll edit all this stuff out at the beginning once I get home. Okay. So I am going to, I've got to see how I can turn my camera around here. Here we go. Okay, so I'm going to see if I can give you my view of my iPad. Oh. Don't use this very often, so bear with me here. I was meaning to get all this set up before I went live, but I accidentally hit the live button, so here I am. As you can see, I'm in one of the bedrooms. And I will try to zoom in a little bit here. This is the scene I would like to paint today. Get that out of the way. Okay, that's the scene I would like to paint. And I'm going to try to paint on this little block. So let me zoom out a little bit here so that you can see. And it's going to be hard for me to see some of the comments as we're going along, but I have to lean over a little bit. I don't have another monitor, and I don't have a person monitor to help me read out the comments. So I'm just going to have to sort of wing it here. And I've done these in the past where I've actually gone outside, and I think I think it might be a little buggy outside, you know, but it's also not this beautiful sunset that I wanted to paint. So I have done the on location, and there's kind of one main view from this cottage. So hang on. Hello from Belgium, Kansas, Brighton, Oakville. Behind the scenes. Yeah, that's right. I have to lean over here a little bit here to read these. Yeah. Yeah, I think this was a pretty widespread heat wave, and it's nice to get back to normal temperatures. Of course, we always pick, this is a group of my friends, fellow painters, and we rent this cottage every once in a while, and we come up here to paint together for a week, which is a great getaway. And we just paint whatever we would like, and it's a lot of fun. I think that that's actually a really awesome way to plan a holiday with your other painting friends. The one thing I have found about working with uh, or taking a holiday with other friends, sorry, is that they don't have the patience for you to stop and paint something. So when you're with other painters, of course, you all speak the same language, and you all understand that you just have to paint something. So I'm going to be using my little travel set. I actually really wish I was horizontal here. I've got a vertical format, but I don't think I can change that once I get out of live stream. So just bear with me here a minute. I've got this is my little tiny, the little bag I've got here, and in it I've got my travel brushes, which are the same as the ones here. I've got 4 little travel brushes in various sizes, and this is actually a pardon me, an eyeshadow that I converted. Pardon me. So I took the eyeshadow out. I replaced it with some paints. I haven't used this in a while. I've kind of forgotten what colors I've got in here, but I've got 2 yellows, 2 reds, 2 blues, a couple of neutrals, a couple of greens, which I don't usually use, but if you're doing a lot of plein air, it's good to have a couple of sort of convenience colors in there. I believe this is Payne's Gray, and I believe this is like a dioxazine purple. So it gives me a really good range of color. There's 12 wells in here, so that's a pretty good assortment for such a little compact size. And the lid here is, I had to sand it a little bit so that it would be sort of etched a little bit, and would have a bit of tooth to mix my colors. So, all right, I've got my water containers, which you can see one is already dirty. But, and I'll be working, this is my iPad here. And I'm going to be working on a pad of Bao Hong watercolor paper. This one's the artist quality, and it is 100% cotton, and it is 140-pound cold press. So I'm going to be using this to create this scene here. Summer's coming. We're going to see more than one sunset, I'm sure. But this was really, really beautiful last night. It wasn't until it was just about down that we saw the clouds start to get colorful. Okay. So as I'm planning this out, let me see if I can get more of this on here. I'm sorry it's not laid out a little bit better here. I don't think I can go horizontal once I am vertical. I think I tried that once before, it didn't work. But anyway, this sky, imagine this without any of the trees, or without any of the land or the reflections or anything, just what is behind, all the light that is in this. One of the big problems with trying to do a sky like this is creating mud, because you've got these like oranges in the sky, and then you've got blues. Well, you know that those are complementary colors, and if they start to mix too much, they will indeed make mud. And so you want to be very careful about that. And is there a difference in Bauhong Master's Choice and Bauhong Artist Cold Press Paper? Actually, Gretchen, I don't know. I have not used the Master's Choice. I have not had the opportunity to try that one out. So I don't know. I actually bought this one just as a tryout. So now this is a dangerous setup here, having my coffee right where my water is. So I'm going to move that to this side so I don't stick my brush in it. That is my classic move. And I'm going to need a couple of paper towels, so grab a couple of those. So I have that. I didn't bring a pencil or anything, so I'm just going to be focused on the background for now. But before I do, let's figure out some colors. Because if I wet the background and then I go to mix my colors, of course, the background's going to be dry by the time I get my colors made. So I'm going to soften up my colors as best I can on short notice here. I need to have an orange, so I'm going to pick my, this is a Rose Door color here. I want to have some of that. And you see the advantage of sanding this part of the eyeshadow is that the paint doesn't keep beating back up. All right, so I want to have that. And I'm going to make this color a little bit stronger because, well, first I want some good strength on there. I am using transparent color because I really want to have the white of the paper come through this color to make it feel a little bit more illuminated from underneath. If I use an opaque color, I can get a similar effect, but I don't think it's going to have the same kind of glow unless I am using something with a transparency. So I'm going to use some of this Rose Door. This is Rose Door, the orange one. Then I've got some permanent rose. You could see the difference there. This one's definitely more pink, pink feeling. And the only disadvantage to this small palette is the size for mixing, but you could also have another something to mix onto, like a little Corel plate or something like that. So I've got my Rose Door, Permanent Rose, and this one is Cerulean Blue. Cerulean Blue is a little less transparent than the other colors, but it will give me a nice sky color. I could also use something like a phthalo phthalo green shade would also give me a nice a nice sky color, but it is more staining, and I didn't happen to have any, so that's what it boils down to. So Now I can wet this area here. I could also work on dry paper if I wanted to. So if I wanted to work on dry paper, I would just make sure that, you know, I'm picking up lots of wet color in my brush, and then, and probably using a separate brush for transitioning, but I'm going to wet the paper first this time, and work that way. So I'm just going to take the entire sheet. This is a block, so I can wet everything. It is glued on all four sides, and therefore it's not going to move. It may wrinkle a little bit, but you can see maybe with the shine of the light, you can see if I've missed any areas and if I have a uniform shine everywhere. And that's actually what I'm looking for, is a uniform shine all over my paper here. And of course, I'm inspired to paint this sunset because I am here at this cottage, and this is kind of in if you're familiar with Ontario, this is in the Huntsville area, and it's gorgeous up here. Now you notice I keep adding water even though it's got a shine, and it's because I'm trying to evenly distribute this, and it's absorbing almost as quickly as I'm putting it on, so I want to make sure that it stays wet. Better to have too much water on there than not enough. And then if I tilt, you know, I get a bit of a puddle here, I can actually drink that up and wipe it off. So if I take my brush and pull up that extra that's kind of tilting, as I tilt this, it's kind of pooling down here, I can take that off and just wipe it off. Okay, so I want you to see this is a pretty nice uniform shine, but I'm going to let that soak in just a little bit more. And as I go to add my paint, I'm going to be not using really wet watery paint. I want to make sure that I'm using paint that has a little bit of body to it, because I want it to stay where I'm putting it. So I'm not going to use a really big wet brush for this. I'm going to use something smaller. Sorry, I knocked that. So I'm going to take and kind of blot my brush, and then I'll go into my colors that I want. So I'm going to start with, sorry, I keep hitting that pole. Not used to having that there. But I'm going to go into some of my colors here. Maybe I can move this up a bit. Okay, I still have a pretty good gloss. But I hope you can tell that it's starting to soak into the paper a little bit more. So that for me is the more ideal time for applying the color, because that will allow me to have a little bit more control. It's not going to be all sitting on the surface where my paint's going to rush all over the place. So I can come in here and start putting in, I think I'm going to put a little yellow into that. It looks a little bit too red to me, so I'm going to put a little of my gamboge into this. Gamboge is a nice warm yellow, so I'm going to golden that up a bit. That feels a little better. So looking for my orange clouds. Now doing this on such a wet surface is going to definitely allow me to have a lot of soft edges. So then there's some of these clouds that go straight across, and now before I come down and get too far ahead of myself, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some of this blue and start putting in between, that's the most important part here, in between I'm going to be starting to put in some of the sky color. So I'm not overlapping my orange colors here. I'm painting the white spaces in between. And you can maybe see that there's a little gap. That's going to close in as I'm working. And as I get further down the horizon, down towards the horizon, I'm going to have a little less color. So I'm going to thin this out a little bit more, this blue, make it a little bit more transparent. And this is kind of a little bit of a wing it sort of video, as you can tell. And I want to use some of this red in here too. So I'm going to put some of that red at the tops of the clouds, which I'm going to want to have that mix in a little bit with my, with the blues, and you'll see that that will help turn it into a purple. But I'm going to put a little bit more of that light orange color along here. If it's spreading too far, you can actually sort of halt it. See, it's coming down a little more than I want here, so just drink some of that up, kind of stop the flow. Not going to put my paper towel on this and dry a patch. That's kind of one of the worst scenarios. So now if I take some of that blue and I mix it into that red that I put at the top, you can see that that blue, that cerulean blue, mixing with that red, starts to turn the tops of these clouds a little purple. Right? Because we know blue and red do give us a purple. And that purple actually gives us a nice sort of transition between the blue and that orange color. I'm going to lighten up a little bit of this just by picking up a bit of color. All right, now as I look down into the water, I can see some of the same color that is transitioning down into the water. So I'm going to address some of that at the same time, but it does seem to be quite light down there. There's a lot of light bouncing off the water, and that's going to give me something much lighter. So I'm going to go into a little bit more watered down color because I want a lot of that white paper showing through. There's a little margin of blue right through here, not very much. And then we get some more of those nice golden orangey type colors down here. Just like at this stage of the game, it kind of looks like a lot of stripes of color. And I guess essentially that's what I've got, but it's going to give me something. Once you put it into context and you put the trees on there, it will start to make more sense. Putting a little bit more color in here, a little bit more blue. Make sure I go right off to the sides here. Go right through the trees. I often see people trying to do a sky and they try to paint around a tree, and there's absolutely no reason. A tree is almost like 99% of the time, the tree is darker than the sky. So it will go on top, especially in a sunset scenario where you've got the sky is much lighter and the trees are kind of silhouetted. So you're always going to get something brighter there in the sky than the trees. So you might as well just put it right underneath. Makes everything look continuous, all that sort of thing. Now I didn't have any of this drawn out, and I would not have drawn this part out anyway. I would have probably placed things a little bit more accurately if I had the drawing of the trees and the island and the shoreline and all of that sort of thing. But I forgot to bring my pencil down, so I have a pencil here. I just didn't want to run away and run upstairs to get it. Okay, so this is nice and wet, which means that I can maybe give this a quick dry, which I could not do if I were outside. I could not take my dryer and dry this, but since I am here, this is going to give me the opportunity to actually share with you the approach that I take to doing trees and things like that. I haven't used this heat tool too much in the last couple of days with this bad heat spell we've had, but it's cooler down here on the lower level. But I cannot put trees on wet paper and expect to have the shapes maintained. While I'm doing this, maybe I can take a look at some of the comments. You notice when I'm drawing, by the way, I keep this moving around the whole page. I don't want one side to dry faster than another. That's going to give me inconsistencies, make the paper wrinkle more too. So I'm trying to keep it a little bit more evenly dried, the same as I was evenly trying to distribute the water in the first place. Yes, I'm using a block of Bao Hong Artist Quality 140-pound cold press paper. Karen says, tried taking my iPad down to the water, but the sun on the screen made it impossible to see. Yes. And that I did find that a little bit of an issue the last time I was trying to film outdoors. I know there's some artists that really have it all worked out with the, how they have their setup and everything. And I will do that in maybe a recorded session where I can sort of take a little bit more time and set things up. But I did not mix my orange. Well, I sort of did. It's a color called Rose d'Or, which is a Da Vinci color, and I wanted it a little bit more yellow, so I added some gamboge, which is also a mixture. It's mostly the Rose d'Or, which you can see in my palette looks almost orange, but it was a little more red than I wanted, so I had to add some of the gamboge here. Okay, how's this feeling? Pretty good, pretty good. So now I've got my sky established, and because I used color that was sort of strong on a wet paper, I ended up with colors that are fairly close to the same value as what's over there on my paper. This is one really, really common mistake, and that is if you try to mix the right color here on your palette, or the right value, I should say. So, the lightness or darkness of the color is what I'm referring to here. And if you try to mix the value here that you see here, it will end up too light on a wet surface. So you have to overcompensate for that when you are mixing your puddles of paint. Also making sure that your brush isn't overly wet as you're applying the color to the wet surface will help you to more accurately represent the colors that are there. So as I mentioned earlier, I didn't have this drawn out, so the placement of some of this is going to be a little bit wonky, but eh, that's his life, right? If you're painting plein air, sometimes that's what happens. But this isn't something that I would paint as the sun was setting, because it's, you all know that once the sun sets, it just drops like a stone and it's gone. So let's see, which one is this? This one looks to be my Payne's Gray, so I'm going to use this one here. I'm going to use that for my silhouette of my trees. And my trees and my islands, you cannot even see, because the lighting is from behind. They are actually silhouetted, so you don't see a distinction between this island and the distant shore. So uh, I'm just going to connect it all. I could, if I wanted to create a little bit more perspective, I could create this shore in the background a little bit lighter. Maybe I will do that. I'll just make this a little bit lighter. So I'm going to just mix this here. I'm going to throw it in with all these colors as well, because I know that all mixed together, those colors are definitely going to turn out to be a dull gray, so that's okay. So you can see I'm mixing a big puddle of this. I'm going to try to get a reasonably straight line here. One little tip for a straight line on your shore, if you want, you can use tape. So I won't bother. I can't seem to get the end of it up, but you could use a piece of tape on your shoreline if you're trying to keep your distant shoreline straight. Really helpful for something like an ocean scene where you know that the horizon is indeed very straight. But most of the time, not going to say 100% of the time, but if you've got a shore that's a good distance away, and I did zoom in to take this picture, so it is a good distance away, uh, the the shoreline will look very straight. Even if, you know, from a topographical view, like if you were looking down on something, you know, the lake might be quite round or something. When you're looking at it from almost water level, it will look straight. So you know, maybe a little bit lower than that. Okay, so I'm not too worried about this side, because this is where all the trees are going to be, like the close-up trees in the island. And here's where I want to make sure it's all connected and looking rather smooth. And a lot of these trees, I can just connect it all together. It's just a silhouette. It's not a bad idea to practice doing trees in silhouette. One thing that I did to kind of improve my tree painting, I guess, was to I went on to Google and I looked up tree silhouettes, and you'll find lots of them when you go look. And I tried to uh, replicate the silhouette of the tree, and boy, it sure teaches you a lot about the structure of the tree and the anatomy of, you know, whether a tree trunk grows straight, whether it grows really crooked, or if it splits or things like that. The diameter of the tree trunk, the diameter of the branches, whether they reach up towards the sky, whether they bend down, whether they're gnarly, it tells you so much about them. So if painting all your trees um, always look the same, that's a really good exercise to try. Just Google's tree silhouettes, and Google will come up with umpteen. And do it just for practice. Don't copy them um, for your paintings, but so that you have a better understanding of the tree anatomy. All right, so now I'm coming down into this main part of the island here. Now, because this is water, I'm going to just sort of skim my brush across the paper. And you can see that it leaves those wonderful uh, little uh, little bits of light that are that show the motion of the water. So I'm not using the point of my brush to do every little stroke here. What I am doing is just sort of skimming across to get something that will replicate the motion in the water. If I had left white paper in some of these places, like so if underneath I had left white paper there, this would have looked like the sun actually glistening off the water. Um, uh, yes, this is a photo I took last night, actually, as the sun was setting. When I was here last year, we were experiencing a lot of smoke from the wildfires. As you remember, Canada had a lot of wildfires last year. And yeah, we're not faring a whole lot better this year either, but we had a lot of fire smoke in the air, I guess, because of the wildfires. And I was the sky was quite red even before it got to the sunset stage, and it was kind of weird, but thankfully it seems to be pretty good, at least where I am at the moment. So you might see me doing strokes this way. That's mainly because this block has a bit of, I don't know if you can see this, but a bit of glue sticking up there, so it's not allowing me to lay my brush down. So once I held it down, I might be able to do that. But now you'll see here in this picture, there's one little, I don't know if it's the current in the water. I believe it's, you know, this is more open water back there where it's a little lighter, and then you have this hint of a reflection from this distant shore here. So I'm going to go across here in a straight line. Need to actually have a little bit more paint here. Now, as I come down into more this area here where it's reflecting more of the sky, I can switch, and I'll probably do this a little later when I can clean off my palette, but I would switch back to more of the darker colors here and do that for my motion in the water. It would look really strange for me to just leave it like this because of the you know, this is obviously reflection. Here would be reflection of the sky. So you want to show the motion, but you don't want it to be, you know, just sort of the color and the dark silhouette color that I've got here. It should represent the actual what is being reflected. So very, very light touch here. Not a lot of pressure on my brush. I want to make sure that I'm only skimming the paper, so there's no sort of bending of my brush or anything like that. There we go. Now I've got this line here, which is going to start to make a bit of a hard line, but I'm going to come in a little darker anyway for this foreground. You can see it looked really dark when I was putting it on there, but as I start to build up and put like more of a cream consistency of paint, I will end up with a deeper color. So when I say cream consistency of paint, I'm talking about, you know, a lot more pigment in it, which of course changes the viscosity of this puddle and gives you a richer application of color. Whoops, sorry. I almost knocked everything over here. Um, so this is Payne's Gray, which honestly I find a little bit too cold, especially at a sunset. I'm going to put a little burnt sienna into it just to warm it up a bit. I had mixed it with a lot of those sky colors before. I'm just going to put a little burnt sienna in it, just so it's not such a cold, dark color. All right, so here we go. This actually comes over a little bit more a little past halfway here, I would say. In my photo, that's halfway, and I can see that it actually goes a little bit further. So I'm going to bring this over a little bit more than I had it. Now, of course, this area through here is going to be very dense because it's got the distant shore blocking any light coming through that spot. And I'm gonna, now I brought the shore over, which means I also have to bring the water reflection over. Wouldn't make much sense otherwise. Did you notice I blotted there? Hopefully I have everything on here. Really try not to knock you guys on the floor here as I'm doing this, but so I can go over this a few times, like once it's dry, I can go over it again. But don't go over it too many times. You're going to lose all of the sparkle in the water from the motion in the water. So you can't go over it too many times or you lose all of that. But it does give you just maybe a little bit more texture. And I'm deliberately leaving a little bit of a lighter spot right through there, because I'm going to end up putting my tree here. Hopefully I left enough space. This is actually a longer format than I actually have on my page. So I might end up making a shorter tree. That's what you get for not drawing it out first. But no, this tree has a little bit of a crooked stem, or trunk I should say, and it is leaning over slightly, and it's just a little bit, the tip of it's a little right of center. You know, when you see artists doing this all the time, this is one of the things they're doing. You know, you look for the center, and you can tell that I've got to start over here a little bit. And of course it gets thicker as you come down, so I press a little bit more on my brush there. Now I could be using my brush. I could actually be using a liner brush for this if I wanted, but I didn't bring one down with me. And so I'm going to look at the structure, the skeleton of the tree. You know, if this tree had no foliage on it whatsoever, it would have just naked branches. And I'm going to look at how those are structured. Let's get this a little bit smaller. They do crisscross sometimes. And as it comes to the top of the tree, they start to come up a little bit more towards the top. As the lower part of the tree where the branches are longer pulls the branches down. So it makes sense that these ones are going to actually start reaching down. And one thing that so many people tend to forget is um, the uh, what was I going to say? I lost my train of thought because I was reading comments at the same time. I'm not a very good multitasker apparently, but it'll come back to me. I'm not being really, oh, I know what I was going to say. A lot of people forget that the branches also come towards you, go away from the tree as well. So sometimes you'll have a branch that will just look like it's really short like that, but it's actually the foreshortening and it's actually coming towards you. So you will see some of that. And they do crisscross quite often, actually. I'm really trying to use the point of my brush here to create some of these branches. Now I could use this brush. You could see this is a squirrel hair travel brush. Uh, yeah, the name's all worn off, but it's Bialk, Biaelk is the brand that I'm using. But I find they're pretty comparable from brand to brand. You know, unless you get poor one once in a while where the bristles come out or something. But generally, I find them all pretty consistent. Okay, so I could use this to create some of my foliage. The foliage, these branches definitely kind of come and point with the foliage. And I'm going to always have my brush handle in the direction of the foliage if I want to create that look of that point. But I have to keep my brush blotted or I get a solid blob of foliage. So similar to what I did down here, and you'll notice I changed the direction of the brush point in order to do that. There are a lot of artists who will do something like a little fan brush like this to paint this sort of thing. Renee is asking if the tree is crooked, so is the reflection? And yes, it would be. This isn't crooked enough to be super obvious, but yes, if the tree was really angled like it was falling, this would also be angled. So yeah, I could potentially bring this over a little bit more, but don't want to go too crazy with it. That sort of thing. So like if it's angled this way, if it's angled this way, it will angle the mirror image of it basically. But let me just do a little bit with this fan brush just to give you an idea of this as well. So I would dampen it, but blot it, pick it up with my color, and I don't want to try to use the entire end of all the bristles here, but I do like the separated bristles, the way this fans out and gives the separated bristles, helps to really give you a pretty good representation of that needle-like, I guess, uh, broken edge kind of thing. So I can go from tapping to a little bit of a very short stroke to create this similar illusion. And I don't need to really paint every single branch on the tree. I mean, if I put some foliage here, there's a branch hidden in there somewhere, but I don't have to paint the entire branch in order for that to come across. I also don't have to use the entirety of the fan brush. I could just use like sort of a little bit of a corner. Uh, you know, everybody likes something different. You know, it's whatever works best for you. Sometimes I use this, but most of the time I'm just using a dry brush technique. Okay, my puddle's getting a bit dry. I may have to make a little more paint. Want to make sure that I'm maintaining a lot of the airy space between branches in this tree. Uh, it's a deciduous tree, but it's not a Christmas tree, right? It's definitely got a lot of um, space between the branches. This would be really hard to hang your Christmas lights on. So I'm allowing some of this to get a little more dense as I'm painting this. I'll be running into the other tree there in a moment. Each one of my strokes is a little bit of a sweep, not straight, you know, like I'm doing individual needles. That's very important that I don't try to do that sort of thing. I'm just taking advantage of the the fact that these bristles don't all come together like that, that they're separated, and so it's giving me a little bit more of a irregular edge as I'm painting this. Okay, so there's my first one. I've got a lot more tree to make here, so I need to get a little more paint prepared. Okay, the next one's going to be taller, and it's straighter for sure. I use a brush for that because this tree's more filled in than the other one. So I'm not going to worry too much about the tree trunk because it's all going to get filled in anyway. But I really want to pay close attention to the structure of those branches. Are they poker straight from the tree trunk? No, they have a little bit of a curve. They're almost always reaching up towards the sun, towards the end of the branches in this case. There's, you know, certainly trees like a willow tree where the branches hang down, so it's a completely different type of anatomy. I don't see as many sort of naked branches like this one here. I drew some of the branches on first, but I don't see as much of that on this tree next to it. So I'm not going to worry too much about spending time doing that. And we're starting to get a little bit more filled in here. So I just love this little, this is my, you've seen me use this in past videos where it's just, uh, you know, such a versatile thing. I use it for spattering. I use it for texture. I, I, I really do like this little, I'm going to cry when it finally dies. It's an old brush that somebody gave me, and I don't even know the brand. There's nothing left. Oh, yes, I do. But I'm quite sure they don't make it anymore. It's a Cornell, I believe. Cornell something. They're all very similar. Just the little version, I guess, is what I like about it. Now, making sure that this puddle here, over here, that I'm picking up, making sure that that's as dense as possible, because this is not something that you can go over to darken. So you want to make sure you're using rich enough color right from the beginning. You don't really want a lot of see-through trees. And don't forget these ones that go through the middle of the tree, right? There's those branches that are actually coming sort of right at you. And come down into the island where it's just disappears basically. Now we have the one tree running into another. This is another thing that is really common, I see, especially with people that are kind of newer to watercolors. The spacing of trees is always even, uniform, lined up like soldiers or matchsticks in a box or something, or in a, what do they call those? Another tree trunk there, just to. And then we have little bits from another tree just coming in from the margins. We don't even see where that tree trunk is. I'm just going to bring a few branches in from the left-hand side. They're looking a little thin, so I have to make sure I get them a little stronger. Just because they're small branches doesn't mean I want to water them down more. They need to be just as solid as the other things in the picture. Right down to there. Now, if I wanted to, I could even run a little bit along here. The only thing I don't like, though, about doing that is it lines up it looks a little bit too much like I used a comb or something to create this. I find that using the dry brush way of creating the sparkle in the water or the motion in the water so much better. So I still have to come back and put in some of the texture in the water with using the colors of the sky. So just building up a little bit more here just to get a few things darker. Okay, so that's the gist of it anyway. Not perfect, but it's, you know, you get the idea. I'm going to rinse this out. And I almost knocked you over again. Sorry. Uh, I want to clean off this so that I can get some of my colors from the sky into the motion of the water. So I'm going to just clear this off. I want to make sure I don't get paint on their night table here. All right, I just need a little bit more paper towel so it's clean. Get a clean brush. It takes a while to get that Payne's gray out of the brush, so it sometimes gets hidden in there. I don't know that I've ever talked about this, but sometimes you get like bits of paint. You can see it's hiding in the brush, right? It gets up into this part. So you do have to sometimes really check to make sure that you haven't got something in there that's going to muddy up your colors. All right, so I'm going to take some of this Rose d'Or, some of the Gamboge, okay, blot some of it off on my brush. And I'm going to basically continue across the water, but this time I'm going to be using the colors from the sky. Got my brush a little too dry there. Really laying it down sort of parallel to the paper. And again, that little bit of glue on the lip of this is giving me a little bit of an issue with getting my brush really low, but I'll do my best. Could, if I had my knife with me, I would trim that off. My X-Acto or my utility knife would be fine for taking that off. I can even put some of this into the areas here. If I feel like these are looking too light, I can brush some of this over into this area here as well. That was a little bit much. You can see that lip of glue is giving me a bit of a problem. All right, now I am finding right down in here, I've got motion in the water showing, but that doesn't seem right to me because this is very solid here. So down here it needs to be a little more solid. So I'm going to go back to some of my Payne's gray mix here and get some of this sort of filled in so that it seems to make a little bit more sense. So I'm coming back into this. It may very well be water. It's just reflecting an area, a solid area above. So therefore you don't want to have the sparkles in there. It's like when people do a portrait and you have their faces in shadow. Maybe they're wearing a hat or something like that. And somebody always puts a glint in the eyes if the sun were sparkling in their eyes. Well, that wouldn't make sense if they had a hat shading their eyes. So it wouldn't make sense here for that to be showing sparkle in the reflection of the solid part of the island. Okay, now there's looks like a log or a branch, like a fallen piece of branch or something in the water right here at the water's edge. So um, I'm going to just uh, put in a little branch here and a um, little bit more reflection. I'm just getting a kick out of my friend here. She heard me say if I had an X-Acto knife, she's sneaking one in the door here, trying to give me one, but I'm okay. So um, just a little bit more of this, just to show this branch coming down here. So this is kind of solid, and that just gives it like a little interesting element there, I think. But you don't want to have a mirror reflection of this branch, because the mirror reflection of that branch would imply that the water didn't have any motion. So uh, you may get something like that first thing in the morning. Very often the lakes are really calm first thing. So yeah, you would have a very still water thing going on, and you might get a mirror reflection. But when there's actual a little bit of turbulence in the water, you will get a bit of motion in there. So it distorts any reflections, and therefore you're going to have um, a bit of distortion going on. There. I think I'm just about done this one here. Let's get a little bit more yellow maybe in here. Still keeping this area really nice and light, but I wanted to put some motion in there to make it feel consistent. It would not have felt right if I had just left that smooth. That would have implied like I said, a really motionless lake, which doesn't make any sense. So anyway, let me take this off now. Let me bring this up here just to show you my painted version. Didn't take me very long to do that. I did actually leave this a little bit lighter here, and some of this is a bit wet, which is why it doesn't look that even. I could actually quickly dry it, and that would get rid of that shine on there and make it look more even. But uh, this back shore is, with the paint was slightly more diluted, just makes it's still silhouetted, but it makes it look a little further away. It does kind of separate the island from the trees in the foreground. Okay, I'm going to do one last thing here just to bring a branch. Since I have a lighter island back here, I want to bring some of my branches down here to make it look consistent. Okay, so now I can tell this is an island, that is a distant shore. One thing I want to point out though, you notice that this has a reflection, but this does not. When things are far away, they don't always reflect because of the change of angle. When something's closer, you're looking more down at it, so therefore you're seeing the reflection. But when you're looking across, like a skipping stone, you're looking off in the distance, uh, you don't see that reflection. Part of it also has to do with the fact that there's some motion in the water. Uh, Even in the distance, you may see a little slight reflection, but it would be very, very minimal in a distance. But I'm trying to think of a scenario where I'm actually seeing a reflection in a distance. I can't really even think of anything, but this island's clearly closer, and you will see the reflections there. So quick little study, but it turned out kind of nice. Might be something that I might consider doing as a larger painting. And doing a small study like this helps you iron out all the the problem areas, or the technique that you might use, or the order in which you build up your colors. It's not a waste of time to do a small study before a big study. In fact, it's a fantastic learning opportunity for you. So I definitely would recommend doing that if whenever possible. And so now with the glare gone off of the thing, that's my painting. So from that to that. All right, so let me just see if I can turn things around here and read all your comments, because I couldn't read them while I was working there. Yeah, this one's a shorter one today. It's about an hour long, and yeah, white pine. You could be right. They could be white pine jam. My right hand is like an inkjet printer, looking great. An inkjet printer. Thank you, Brazen. Brazen's encouraging you to give me a thumbs up. That's very nice. Thank you. Da Vinci Rose D'Or is now one of my favorite colors. Oh, you're welcome. It's yeah, I do like that color quite a lot. Most of the colors on my palette are selected because they are more transparent. So a comparable red to the Rose D'Or might be something like a cad red. But the problem with cad red is, of course, that it is very opaque. And I like the transparency, especially for something like a sky. It works out best. Did I make my own mini palette? Yes, I did. My little mini palette right here is made out of an eyeshadow from the dollar store. So, those little mini palettes are kind of pricey. And the thing I do like about this is the fact that this is all the colors that I typically use. So they're not unlike a palette that you buy separate from your regular palettes. It's not different colors and everything. It's all stuff I'm very familiar with. I just took out the eyeshadow, filled up the wells, sanded this so that it would be a little better for mixing color, and that's my little $1.50 travel palette. And so I use it quite often, actually. Just refill it when I need to, and there you go. Katrina says she was referring to the branches here. It's like putting mascara on tree lashes. Yeah, I never thought of it that way, but that's actually quite true. Is the tree on the right a little lighter? Yeah, I think I probably did make it a little lighter, Margot. That's why I went back and darkened it up a little bit. Things always dry lighter in watercolor, as you know. I'm reading backwards, so if you're wondering why I'm answering these out of order, that's why. And I think I'm back to most of the greetings at this point. So, yeah, this was last night. This was not Teotao. This was last night's sunset. I thought we weren't going to get a sunset because there was no clouds, and then all of a sudden there was just a little wisp, just enough. And I think I may have answered the questions. Let me scroll back down, make sure I haven't missed anything here. Sorry about starting early here. I started a little extra early because I accidentally hit the live button, and there I was, like it or not. So I will edit that part out at the end. But anyway, so let me flip this around. There we go. That was my little demo at the cottage here, and Now that the hot spell has broken, I hope you have a super week. Get your brushes out and paint something nice, and we'll see you next week. Take care. Oh, and happy Canada Day, all of you fellow Canadians. And we'll see you later. Bye.